Black Baseball History. This is Phil Dixon coming to you live, and with the February 28th and 29th. We have the leap year, and so there are some things that happen on the 29th that you typically don't get. So I want to make sure that I come in and talk to you about those tonight. So I'm going to give about 1 minute for people to join in, and then we're going to get busy talking about this history. Now, don't forget to subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. If you don't like it, that's okay. I won't be offended. But if you like Negro League and you want information that is fresh and refreshing, and information that you typically don't have, maybe you don't have enough time to read all the books that are out there, and you don't know which books to buy. Okay, so I'm going to remedy some of that for you in some of these conversations, and we just talk about black baseball in ways that typically you will not get a chance to hear about it. So again, this is Phil Dixon, and I am in my 46th year as a black baseball historian. And so I do want to thank you for all the support you've given me. Man, 40 some odd years. Just imagine that. I was a young lad when I first started, and I've seen some amazing things over all of these many years. However, tonight, the most important thing is that I bring you some information related to the Negro League. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started, all right? If you're joining and you want to participate in the conversation, one of the easiest way is to just come and say hello and put your city that you are listening from. Those are a couple of easy things you can do, and I might just, maybe I've visited your city over the last 46 years, okay? All right, so let's keep it going. So first of all, we're going to go back to February the 28th, 1912. And on that particular date, Emmett Bowman passed away in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania. And this guy was a sensational pitcher. He was one of the all-time greats. Now, I'm not using that term loosely. This guy was genuinely one of the very special baseball players. And he played for a very special team for a number of years, which was the Philadelphia Giants. 1905, he came to the Philadelphia Giants, and I'm going to tell you some of the things he did in that year. So this is Emmett Bowman. All right, so 1905, this guy tossed 427 total innings. All right, and let me make sure I got that correct. So, yeah, 427 total innings. Now, keep in mind, that's a lot of innings. And so you needed something to compare it to. All right, then. Let me get this person. I'm trying to get that person removed here. All right. Okay, so here we go. So he pitched a lot of innings, and I do want to make sure that you know how many innings he pitched. And the way to do that is compare him to somebody in the American National League. So Jack Chesborough in 1904 tossed 454 innings. That's 454.2 innings for the New York Highlanders. Of course, you know those, they became the New York Yankees. Okay, so you figure Emmett Bowman pitched 427. Now, here's the thing. I don't have all the games that he pitched, because some of the games, as I did the research, now this is original research from me, I could not find the box score. So he may have had as many innings pitched as Jack Chesborough. But Jack Chesborough you heard of, but you've never heard of Emmett Bowman unless you really are a student of the Negro Baseball Leagues. And Emmett, in that year, he would go on to have a 39-6 record. Actually, he had one more win that year that I've been able to document for Andrew Rue Foster. And you know, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he was listed as one of the all-time great pitchers. And so, and then of course, Bowman would go on to report 272 strikeouts, and that was his season in 1905. Have you ever heard of Emmett Bowman? Well, I tell you what, if you ever get this book here, this is my book, Phil Dixon, American Baseball Chronicles, The Great Teams in 1905 Philadelphia Giants. I chronicle that in that book there, and I'm also doing an update to that book. So hopefully I'll get that out before the All-Star break. And the All-Star game this year is going to be played in Philadelphia. So we want to do that. Somebody says, hello from St. Louis. All right. St. Louis, a great city. Got some great memories there through the years. going down there and visiting Tweed Webb and who else I visited? Oh, of course, James Kupapa Bell. Visit him all the time. So yeah, St. Louis has great memories. I used to always like to go down there and get some barbecue and drive back to Kansas City and compare Kansas City barbecue with St. Louis barbecue. Now I will tell you this over in St. Louis. Did you know that from 1932 to 1937, the Kansas City Monarchs never played in St. Louis? That's a true fact. They went instead and played the Belleville Stags baseball team, and they omitted St. Louis altogether. St. Louis was hit by a tremendous depression in the black community, so the Kansas City Monarchs didn't go there. And then, of course, they didn't have a park also, and so where they would play would be difficult. And as you well know, the St. Louis Browns and St. Louis Cardinals did not let African American teams use their park, especially the Cardinals. Oh, Sportsman's Park. They didn't let a black team play in Sportsman's Park until 1941. I think it was July 4th, 1941. And it was the Kansas City Monarchs. If I'm correct, it was against the Birmingham Black Bears in 1941. Just imagine this. Charles Comiskey was allowing black teams to use his park. When he built the new Comiskey Stadium in 1910, black teams played in there in the first month. But here you have St. Louis that held out until 1941. Just imagine that. Guy, I'm giving you real history. So you could look this up. You don't have to take my word for it. Just know these are things I've learned through the years, all right? So we have a lot of people coming in. Certainly appreciate you guys. If you can stay for a minute, certainly appreciate that. If you got to go, I understand that too. But by all means, let me know where you're joining from, all right? People should not be judged for who they are. People should not. I think you should be judged for who you are, especially what you do and say, right? So believe me, I'm talking about baseball. I guarantee you somebody's judging me right now, all right? They don't like my facts, they don't like me presenting these facts, or they don't want to know these facts. But the people who want to know keep coming back, and I certainly appreciate that. And those are the people who become my subscribers, and they keep coming back looking for information they can't get anywhere else in a historic fashion. And the other thing is, being an African American, I can tell our story as well as anyone. Probably it's better than anyone alive, because I've had to live this story and I've been talking about it consistently for 40 some odd years, 46. And God willing, maybe I'll make 50 and give a big party for the 50th anniversary of being a baseball researcher. Just imagine that. Okay, so we're going to keep it going. So now let's go back here. We're going to go back to February 28th, 1894. And Ernest Judd Wilson, a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, is born in Remington, Virginia. How about that? Ever heard of Remington, Virginia? Well, Remington didn't start out as Remington. In 1800, it was called Millview. How about that? Then it was renamed Bowensville around 1850 before becoming Rappahannock Station. And then finally Remington in 1890. And then 4 years later, Judd Wilson is born in Remington, Virginia. Now, right where that area of Virginia is, there's another Baseball Hall of Fame famer who comes from the area, and maybe you've heard of him. How many people know about Pete Hill? Pete Hill comes from Culpeper. He was born in Culpeper, Virginia, and that was about 13 to 14 miles from Remington. So they're right in there together. And but Judd Wilson, I'm gonna tell you what, he was just a sensational player, and I've written about him in this book, the 1931 Homestead Grays. The Great Teams is part of my Great Team series. You notice this is volume 1 and this is volume 3. All right, so Judd Wilson's in volume 1, Emmett Bowman in volume 3. And just for the record here, I'm just going to show it here. Here's volume 2. And this is the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants in volume 2. All right, so I write about Judd Wilson. So let me tell you what he did in 1931. I happen to think a lot of Judd Wilson. I think he's one of the all-time great hitters. And, you know, growing up, I was always hear about Ted Williams being one of the greatest hitters that ever lived. Man, I'm telling you, they didn't know anything about Judd Wilson. Judd Wilson he was, this guy was a winner, and he was a superb hitter. And let me tell you what he did in 1931, and this is why this book is important. 1931, he had 24 home runs, right? And so when I broke it down, 11 of those home runs came off of black pitchers, and the rest of them came off white pitchers. I always like to break everything down, and so you can really get a true picture of what was going on, right? Okay, and he also, in one span, that year, he ripped 240 hits. Now, here's the amazing thing. He got those 240 hits in the 132 box scores that I found. See, I didn't find all the box scores. I think they played like 158 games. I found 132 box scores, and I have those, all of those, recorded. And he had 240 hits. Just imagine that. 200, you got to think about this, 240 hits in 132 games. And he's playing against all kind of competition. Didn't make any difference. Judd Wilson was simply outstanding. And to top that off, he hit 50 doubles and 15 triples. So he wasn't a slow guy either. And he was just an amazing player. Judd Wilson. And Satchel Paige, nicknamed him Boojum. And he said because the way the wall sounded when the ball bounced off of it. So, but this guy could hit shots. He had power. He had speed. And he is certainly one of the legendary greats in black baseball history. But when you think about that, he's one of the legendary greats in all of baseball history. Can't discount this guy at all. Judson Wilson died in Washington, D.C. In the I think it was 1960s. He passed away early 1960s. But he definitely was born 1894 in Remington, Virginia. Look it up. Don't take my word for it, all right? Okay, and now we're going to go to something that's kind of weird because since there is not going to be a 29th this year, if I'm correct, so we're going to give you the 29th feats as well tonight. So we're going to give you February 29th, 1904. Let's see, we'll just put it like Nish Williams was born on the February 29th, 1904, and he was a catcher and an outfielder for 10 years in Negro National League with various teams. Started off with Nashville. Of course, he played with the Black Sox, Baltimore Black Sox. He played with the Newark Eagles. And he was born in Columbus, Georgia. Yeah, and when Williams was young, they moved to Atlanta. And he eventually attended Morehouse College. Yeah, so that was Nish Williams. And later on, he got married. And his wife already had a son. And that son ended up in the major leagues. You probably heard of Don Clendenin. Well, Nish Williams was his stepdad. Yeah, so I was able to talk about that. I remember years ago, Othello Renfro. I was down in Atlanta and speaking with Renfro. Renfro was kind of connected to me in a way. I don't know if I mentioned this or if you've heard it in my other broadcasts. And I mentioned some things in broadcasts. I may sometime repeat it, but because I don't think anybody goes back and listens to all those broadcasts. But I would tell you this, that he was married to my cousin, Juanita Peeler. He married Juanita Peeler. Of course, my mother's maiden name was Peeler. He married her cousin, and they were married. And so he was kind of connected to my family. So when I was able to talk to him, Juanita told me how to reach him. And I went down there and talked to him, and he was one of my interviews. And he began to tell me about Nish Williams and the Don Clendenin connection. Of course, I saw Don play one game with the Pittsburgh Pirates because the Pirates came to Kansas City. I can't remember if it had to be like 70, maybe 1970. And they came and played an exhibition game against the Kansas City Royals. An interesting thing, I remember the Pirates in that game and seeing these great Pirate players because they were a contender at that time and we were just getting started with the new Kansas City Royals. And I remember that night there was a guy who ran on the field and he ran on the infield. I had never seen a guy run on the field, a fan run on the field during the game. And that was the first time I saw that. So that was a part of that memory of the night the Pirates came and played in Kansas City. I often wanted to look up that game and see who was there in that lineup that night. But I saw most of the Pirates greats. And so, all right. So That's Nish Williams in connection to Don Clendenin. And then here's one that you probably will not get. And we have anybody joining in here? Let's see. Somebody did. So old Satchel Paige ever pitch against Babe Ruth? No, he did not. I have never seen Satchel Paige. Satchel was just getting good at the same time Babe Ruth was leaving baseball. Satchel Paige was pitching away. But when Babe Ruth retired in 34, Paige was just really starting to shine in 34, 32, 33, right in that period there. So as far as I know, they never faced each other. But Satchel faced a lot of other famous baseball players from the National American League. And believe me, they testified that this is one of the greatest pitchers they'd ever seen. Matter of fact, Dizzy Dean said that they asked Dizzy Dean, who's the greatest pitcher in the world? He said, there's a colored boy by the name of Satchel Paige. He said, if you could get him and me on the same team, we could win the pennant by the 4th of July and go fishing till the World Series starts. That was Dizzy Dean. And I wrote about that. I don't have a copy of that book in here, but it's called The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime. And guys, you can order all these books, and I'll be happy to sign them from my webpage. And that's NLBalive.com. That's like Negro League Baseball Alive.com. ALIVE. NLBalive.com. All right. So I have one more tonight, and then I usually try to get out here by 20 minutes because I know attention spans and activity schedules are hectic, right? And of course, a lot of people tonight are watching TV because we may be involved in another war, and which is war. War is ugly. It really is. So anyway, I'm going to go to my last one, and here we go. So February 29th, 1900, a left-handed pitcher by the name of James Homer Hop Bartley, a pitcher for the 1924 Kansas City Monarchs, is born in Centralia, Missouri. Now, Centralia is out by Columbia, Missouri. Interesting thing, years ago, James Papa Bill, I don't know if you're from the St. Louis guys still on here, but many of his items were stolen. And I testified in the federal court about the authenticity of those items. And that was back in, I want to say, oh man, it might have been maybe 1990, I think it was. I'm not for sure. I have to go look up. I had to go look up my own records. But anyway, so I had to go down to St. Louis, and so they were able to provide me a car. So I drove down to St. Louis, and they paid me to come down there and to do the testifying. And so when it was time to come back, I had a little extra time. So I said, you know what? I've been wanting to go to Centralia to do this work on Homer Hop Bartley. So I went to Centralia. I went to the local newspaper, and I was trying to find, what became of him. And the guy said, hey, go to the local mortuary because he used to work there and work for this guy. So I went to the local mortuary. Believe it or not, it was a white mortuary. They only had one mortuary in town. I went there, and this guy knew Homer Hop Bartley really well, and he was able to give me some of his family members' names. And so I was able to talk to some of his family members. And of course, Hop Bartley got sick. And in those small towns right around there, I know at least 2 people that this happened to, but he's in Centralia. So if you got sick, the hospital was in Columbia. So they'd have to get you to Columbia. So Centralia is very close to Columbia, Missouri. So he is credited, I'm almost sure, with passing away in Columbia. But I got the information related to him from the guy at the local mortuary, guys. And so that's the reason why I probably am the only person who ever got that close. Now, his wife had just passed away shortly before I got there, so I didn't get a chance to talk to her. But there were other relatives that were still alive right there in Centralia, Missouri. And one of the other things I knew about Bartley came from Jimmy Crutchfield. Jimmy Crutchfield grew up in that area. He was originally born in Ardmore, Missouri, and raised over in Moberly. Now, all of that is connected because it's all centralized right up in that area. John Donaldson comes from area just, I gotta say, just to the west of Columbia. They were more to the east of Columbia. And so all of these ball players are in that area. Bill Gatewood was down there for a time, and uh, Johnny Vivens, another one. And so I was able to go down into these parts of Missouri and little small towns and talk to people who knew these people. And guys, that's why my history and what I'm telling you is so different than what you're getting. You know, um, there are many people out there talking about the Negro Leagues, but the way they talk about it is quite a bit different from the way that I approached it, right? So anyway, yeah. So just to be able to go down into these areas was interesting, and these were areas that were once areas that had lots of slaves in those areas, and my people were enslaved. Now let me tell you this. Um, I like to say that we were never slaves because we weren't. We were enslaved. White people have called us slaves, but we were actually enslaved. That is the real term. So we didn't do this voluntarily. We didn't just say we want to be a slave. No, we had to be captured and held in slavery, right? So we weren't slaves. We were um, captured people. And so I think I spent my whole life in this baseball world trying to make sure that I'm a free thinker. And a lot of the information you get comes from a free thinking mind. And because of that, I've been able to change a lot of the ways people think about the Negro Leagues over the past 46 years. And I've really made my mark on this history in ways that you will not probably ever realize unless you maybe read some of my work or hear me talk, right? So so yeah, Hop Bartley, and man, so that is where I'm going to stop tonight. He was born February the 29th, 1900. So man, that guy would be 126 years old if he was still alive. But I happen to actually know people who knew him, and those were people I met 40 years ago. So wow. It's amazing to me. So let me see if I can answer a few questions, then I'm out of here. Somebody said, rough part of the country for AA, African American community. Well, it is. But you know, I tell you, interesting. If you ever listen to some of my broadcasts, you will know I'm a musician also. And years ago, I played for funk bands, and we would travel around. And I remember one time we had to play in Dalton, Missouri, and I hadn't been there, but some of the guys who were in the band with me had gone there. And we were from Kansas City, so we're going to Dalton, Missouri, down there around Columbia, in that area, Brunswick area down there, Carrollton County, and so I don't know what to expect. So we get down there and we set up. First of all, it was almost like one of those juke joints that you see in movies. And we had some white uniforms that we were using performing around Kansas City. And we got there, it was raining, and they had not a pave, it was a dirt parking lot. So you got out now, it's muddy, and we got a white uniform. It was a disaster. But to make a long story short, that night when we played, all these black people just showed up at this place. I mean, literally hundreds of black people, and they would come from these little small towns that were all around Dalton, Missouri. And I know some people came as far away as Sedalia, Missouri, because when we played Sedalia, I saw some of those same people, and they would come to hear us play when we played in Sedalia. And so I was able to travel all over Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and boy, Mississippi and Alabama playing music. And I was at that time 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. So it's just amazing what you can achieve in a lifetime. So if you ever go back and look at some of my broadcasts, you'll see me playing either the national anthem or maybe I'm playing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. I go out to cemeteries and I'll play taps for veterans, soldiers, just to bring recognition to people who are not getting the attention that they should. So not only do I use my voice, but I use my horn as well. And I still play. Matter of fact, I got to go down here and play a little bit tonight. Got to play every night to not like I'm performing all the time, but I'm practicing every day. And so I haven't blown today, so I got to go down there and do that. And so anyway, so with that in mind, I better cut this broadcast short because I'm at 24 minutes. That's way over. That's about, I'm probably in 5 minutes past my ending time. I do want to thank everybody for joining. And yeah, it was tough. Tough part of town, tough part of the country. I don't know if I want to go down there now. Actually, I, you know, I don't even go down to Branson these days. Branson's kind of tough. You got to go through Missouri, and man, and I can tell you that. Oh no, I won't do it tonight. Remind me next time that I come on, if you will follow me, to tell you about my experience with a town near Branson, Missouri. All right, so I won't do that tonight. But if you come back here, just put that little message in there, and then I'll be happy to talk about it. All right. So thank you for joining for St. Louis here. And somebody asked about Satchel Paige. Somebody said you are the best. I appreciate that. I'm trying to be as good as I can. And somebody said, call me Uncle Bro. All right. Okay. Uncle Bro. All right. Maybe that should be my next broadcast, baseball broadcast from Uncle Bro. How about that? Actually, I know a guy who does a kind of like a finance and investment kind of show. He has a lot of followers, and I know him real well. He's smart money bro. Maybe I should come back as Uncle Bro's baseball facts or something. Who knows? Maybe that'll catch people's attention better than Phil Dixon or something. Who knows? But anyway, I do want to thank you for joining. Guys, remember, you can pick up my books, or you can go in and maybe pick up some conversations I've had by going to other old podcasts. I do This Day in like baseball history, but it gets me to talking about things that are much deeper than just this day. All right. So thank you guys. I'm gonna go down here and get my trumpet and get a little practice in on a Saturday night and go in here and watch the NAACP Image Awards and see what's going on with these with the war that evidently we're involved in right now, which is today. So all right, guys, take care and be praying for you all. Pray for me, and we'll see you again real soon. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Have a nice day.